Welcome to Draegon Grey's Variety Show. This episode is Life and the discussion of how did we get here. This is more of a challenging subject, but one that the hope is that it generates thought and education on some point, but most importantly, thought from within and potential reevaluation of where a person philosophically and or politically may stand. So this is a little bit different than the normal subjects, but due to the times, it's probably worth looking into and again, asking ourselves some questions for which maybe we did not think about. So, how did we get here? How did America get to where philosophically we are politically? More specifically, how did we become so divided? Especially after surviving a pandemic where we lost so many lives. How did so many Americans decide they didn't like the country's political structure and or direction? If they didn't like it so much, they were willing to support a politician who had no interest, apparently, it appeared, in supporting those who voted for him. A politician who knew how to tap into those that voted for him, their emotions, shutting down their ability to think critically, which is absolutely crucial when it comes to ignoring and recognizing untruths, or basically lies. Not thinking took away the ability to recognize this particular politician, it appears, does not, like I said, has no interest. Maybe it appeared to be more self-interest. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's how the presentation was. Identifying this politician just wanted, it appeared, just power and was willing to destroy the fabric of this country's political position, which is democracy, to get it. Along with this sad situation, leaders using religion to further their political interest, not the interest of their constituents. Of what benefit is there to those that decided to follow the politicians who don't really care? Like, the question comes about, like, why would you follow someone that really has no interest in really what you really need or want? One view is that this particular politician created an environment where followers can say what they want unrestrained. What I think that the followers fail to realize that this politician doesn't control those that don't follow him. Therefore, missing the point that there is a consequence for those feeling they can do and say unrestrained without controlling everybody. That would have been the only way a person who voted for this particular politician could feel unrestrained and avoid any unrestrained responses from those that do not share the same political view. What is also unrealized is how following a politician like this without fear of retaliation or verbal attack comes at a cost. What happens when this particular politician or political leader is no longer in power? To say and do what you want is worth losing democracy? That's a question that you really should think about. If democracy is lost, then who actually wins? Those that followed this particular politician or those that didn't? And I would imagine that being that it took many, many years to create democracy, losing it is not something easily recovered. Yes? No? Now, let's look at our leaders and administrative White House staff. By bending the knee or kissing the ring, are they complicit in the potential loss of democracy? I might say yes. They are contributors to the loss potentially. If our leaders and those within this politician's administration are a part of why we lose democracy, which leaders were sworn to uphold by our forefathers creating the Constitution, as might I add the constituents when they voted our leaders in, what will the leaders do to bring back democracy? Can they? If the structure of this country, structured in democracy, loses this structure due to political leaders wanting to be a dictator, ultimately destroying the foundation of democracy, what next? Can the foundation of a country withstand the formation of dictatorship? What happens to the three branches of government? And of course, with no democracy, his followers, he who wants to be the dictator, do they still have freedoms? The military, are they obliged to serve willingly or at the order of a dictator? The senators and congressmen, governors, mayors, etc., what do their roles become in a dictatorship style government? Who will control the process of deciding future dictators? Would voting have any significance? So much effort has been put into the right to vote, and yet voting rights have been on the chopping block for so long. What role of any would voting have in choosing leaders? If we continue to go down this road, we will be forced to answer these questions. Are we prepared to go down this road? Are we aware this may be a possibility? What happens when this want to be dictator takes his last breath? Who takes his place? How? And who decides who takes his place? Does Congress have a say in this process? What use are government officials in a dictatorship? The biggest question is, can America, if it lost democracy, is there any possibility of returning to a democratic structure? Here is why I ask. This particular political leader has done a number of things breaking historical norms. How is it that part of society allows this, yet any other politician with such behavior would be run out of office? What is it about this particular politician that part of society allows apparent hypocrisy? What makes a follower ignore social norms and morals if with a religious foundation? He has signed a number of executive orders. He's using the military to further his wants. He's gotten away with crimes even though he's been convicted of crimes. CEOs of companies have acted and made decisions to support him in fear. If the leaders and administration staff aren't able to stand up, including some Americans, then how does democracy survive with a potential dictator? And if democracy ends, does it ever come back, and how? Are we aware of the long-term implications? It appears, due to allowing our emotions to guide our actions, we are short-sighted in our decision-making. If I recall, for those who are religious, I heard a saying, "You shall know them by their fruits." We, as a nation, collectively made a choice. Even when we were told about the historical behavior of this politician. Is this not a decision guided by emotions and not critical thinking? Like the opening of that soap opera years ago, Days of Our Lives, where the sand in the hourglass falls through. Time is ticking. Are we prepared for what may come if we don't initiate our critical thinking and change course? So let's add something else. So I recently was talking with a colleague of mine, and she explained that she and her other daughters have a conflict with her son because of his political views, of which we figured that it was because of his beliefs with this particular political leader that we've been talking about. So he has four kids, which obviously the colleague is the grandmother of those kids. And as a result of her son's political beliefs, the family is divided, and the family doesn't really talk about this particular subject as a result of where he stands politically. And so here we have families, and this is just one of many where they are divided. They are not together as a unit because of the division that has been created. And the mother or the colleague mentioned to me that she didn't understand how her son could have these beliefs politically. And it's unfortunate and yet sad, because the reality is, once this political leader is gone, or unfortunately, if the family member were to be injured or taken away, does the political beliefs, make a difference? If you lost your son or your daughter or your mother or your father, and you didn't speak to your mother or your father or your family member, and they unfortunately passed, wouldn't that be a tragedy that you've lost time and a relationship due to the beliefs, political beliefs of someone who really doesn't care about what you believe or care about what you think, but the focus is primarily on this political leader being successful and potentially destroying democracy? It's very unfortunate that we are willing to take the loss of family, friends. And if you look at things now in the news, companies are not just laying off, but they are canceling TV shows and other things like that because of the beliefs. And something that's interesting, and we'll end on this, the fear that seems to be in place. Yes, unfortunately, something just recently happened, but your decisions are being made in fear of those things happening. What if they were going to happen anyway? Would that make a difference in the thinking? This has been an episode of Draegon Grey's variety show. Surprisingly, this has been an interesting discussion. My hope is that we all think with our minds and not be guided by our emotions, because that is a dangerous pattern, that where we may find ourselves in a situation that we cannot get out of or return to, because we allow the emotions to decide the decisions, as well as make decisions prematurely, not thinking about long term, but only short term. Be safe, think, make wise decisions that we will not necessarily regret.